All right, Tahma Talks episode 5. Going to be a little bit differently today. I'm going to run you through a bit of a gym session that I'm currently doing while speaking some of the things that's on my mind. So starting off, I'm going to be working the core. This is my current situation right now. I don't know if the lighting's good, but you can see that out. Just come back from a holiday in Greece. Went off the diet a little bit, but to be quite honest with you, I was like 95% all over it. I didn't do carnivore throughout the entire time. I did have a wedding, so I did dabble into some alcohol. And then when I went to the village, I had some things like obviously salads, stuff like that. But my aunties that I hadn't seen in a couple of years did make some cakes. So I did dabble into a bit of that. So it wasn't full carnivore, but having said that, probably about 90 to 95% of my calories were coming from animal products. My routine throughout the day was more or less fasting up until maybe 2, 3 o'clock. I'd get up, I'd go for a bit of a morning run, go do some shadow boxing, might find like a park gym. They've got a lot of like calisthenic type park gyms in Greece. So I was just finding those and just making workouts on the spot and making sure that I wasn't eating for at least the first half to 3/4 of the day, just working off Freddo espressos and other coffees. And then I have like a late lunch, or even I just have a dinner, and that would keep my physique in obviously the condition that it is. So when I came back from holiday, it's like I hadn't skipped a beat. And when I did have my meal, it was mostly animal products. Obviously, on a couple of occasions, I veered off. But what I'm gonna get into today, and what I do with a lot of my training sessions, at least when I start off, always prioritize working the core. And the reason why I do that is because typically a lot of guys, what they do is they'll hit their core, or they'll put their core scheduled at the end of the workout. And as you progress throughout your workout, more often than not, you get to a point where you're dragging your feet, your reps become lazier, you're not into the workout like you once were at the start, and you're taking your pre-workout, it's kind of wearing off. So as fatigue sets in, you become lazier, and bottom line is, it gets to the point where you just walk out of the gym and you don't even train your core. So what do? I hit that shit first up. They're my first exercises. I'm making the priority, and that way my mindset from a nutritional standpoint also follows that. Your core needs to be worked always, and I hit it at the start so that I never miss a beat. You never skip the bench press at the end of the session. Always the priority goes at the start. Your flat bench, your squats, things like that. So if you want to take a leaf out of my book, hit them at the start. And this is what I'm doing right now. So I'm going to be doing hanging leg raises. But a little trick that you guys can use as well is get into a squat rack just like this. And I put a bar or a barbell so it's leaning against my lower back. And the reason why I do that is when I leverage myself up like this, I can now lean my lower back into this bar. Now what that's gonna do, it's gonna remove the swing that you typically find when you're doing the hanging leg raise, and it's gonna put the majority of the stress right where you want it to be, in the lower half of the abdominals, the obliques, and it's gonna give you that nice V-cut taper. So I'll demonstrate exactly what I mean. So I'm hanging here, and this is gonna give you a better base of support. So I'm right here. Always important to show your ass. What do I mean by that? If you're not showing your ass when you're doing any lower abdominal exercise, you're not really working your abs. Because what happens there, you create that spinal flexion. And when you show your ass, pretend basically someone's standing in front of you. Your objective when you're working your lower abs is to show your ass at them. And the reason why is when you tuck your pelvis in, that's what's going to actually engage your lower abs. Otherwise, if you're just bringing your legs up to neutral, just say like that, all you're doing is engaging your hip flexors. Now, sure, because you're hanging, you're going to feel your core on, because your core is going to be on just by you stabilizing yourself. But you're not actually going to be creating flexion in the spine in order to engage the core and really hit the lower abs, which you're actually trying to target when doing this exercise. So when you see guys doing hanging leg raises and they're just bringing their legs up like that, sure, their abs are on, but they're really not targeting exactly what they want to do. It's more or less a hip flexor exercise, and you may as well just be doing a plank if you want to be hitting your core the exact same way. So you've got to understand the anatomy, you've got to understand the function of the lower abs, and that's really to tuck the pelvis in and flex it up like that. So like I said, you want to be showing your ass up into the person if they were standing in front of you. So I usually start off with 3 sets of this, 8 to 10 reps. I'm a little bit fatigued because I was doing these late last night, so just taking a little bit more adequate rest, but 8 to 10 reps is pretty good for me. If you want to add some weights, I mean, you can get like a light ball you can put in between your legs, maybe hang a dumbbell, something like that, but more often than not, this is a pretty advanced exercise, so if you're doing this, then you've got a pretty strong core. I remember as a kid, growing up when I was maybe 12, 13 years old, what got me into training to begin with is, well, firstly, I always remember my parents, they're always going to the gym. I mean, to this day, they're still training. So seeing what they were doing was, you know, exactly what, and this is why I say, like, it's so important for parents to lead by example, coaches to lead by example, because you know, if you're not doing your bit, then how can you expect to coach someone, to give someone information if you're not doing yourself? So my parents were the example for me growing up. I remember my dad even hitting weights at home. We had like a bench press, but they'd always have memberships to the gym in which they were going to. But Rocky movies were massive for me. I remember when I first watched Rocky 1, I would have maybe been like 12, 13 years old, and that was literally like, that injected something into me like you wouldn't believe. Like from that moment on, it was push-ups every night before I go to bed, in my bedroom, in the morning, everything like that. I remember I had like little light dumbbell weights at home and I'd be smashing them. No idea what the hell I was doing, but you know, as no one does when they start off, but that was literally the beginning phases of where it all started. But what got me obsessed with having abs, I don't know what show it was something on Australian TV, but they had these Chippendales dancers. And this show was basically going around to all these random areas in Australia and they were finding men with good physiques. And a Chippendales dancer is basically like, it's pretty much like a stripper. where these guys would go on stage, they'd have nice physiques, and they'd basically just, I think they'd start off with their shirt off or on, whatever it might be. Whatever it was, they had amazing physiques and they were just dancing for the ladies, and all these guys had chiseled abs. And when I saw that, I was thinking, man, I'm going to strive to get abs. And from that moment on, it was just like that was my main priority from a physique standpoint. I didn't really care too much about biceps or chest or back or anything like that, because I knew intrinsically that if I just continue training and being in the gym, all those muscles, if you do it in a good enough way, they're gonna grow. You do enough compound lifts, you do enough time under tension, you do enough progressive overload, eat good enough, those muscles are gonna grow. But what separates the physiques from the 99% to the 1%, it's the core. It's the core, because bottom line is, there's a lot of people that actually train in the gym, but not everyone looks like they train in the gym. And what separates you from the crowd? It's typically the body fat percentage and the muscle of revealing the abs. And see, a lot of people, they'll skip ab training because they know intrinsically that they're too fat or they've got too much fat to reveal them anyway. So they just think, well, fuck it. Well, what am I going to train my abs for if I can't even see them? And then it just leads them down that path of having that mindset that they're never going to get them. So this is exactly why I put the focus on the priority of doing them first thing in the gym. They're my main focus. I know intrinsically that I'm going to do everything else. And I've had them at the end of my sessions before. And I'll be honest with you, I've left the gym and gone, nah, stuff the abs, I'm not going to do them. So knowing those behavior patterns that I've done, and I've seen it with the clients that I coach, get them done at the start, make them the priority. It's going to make you think about them a little bit more. And when you go have your meal after the gym, bottom line is, you're probably going to be emphasizing more so on something that's going to be within your calorie budget. It's going to be more so focused on having you reveal the abs than not reveal the abs, especially because you prioritize them. So going up for set 3 number now. So you'll see right now, man, I'm really trying to show my ass on every rep here. That fatigue's real, man. Old school exercises, the ab wheel, another monster to keep your core nice and stable, and this is what I'm going to be working next. And this is again another type of spinal flexion that's going to be mostly working the 6-pack, you know, those muscles that are revealing, that actually give that blocky look. These exercises for me are literally my staple. I do the spinal flexion with the lower abs. So then I do this, which I'm going to work my abs in different ranges. So I'm obviously going to be in a lengthened state here, and then from there bringing it back to there. And then I usually do some form of rotation, and really that's all I do to target, like, in isolating my muscles from my core. Everything else is generated from my athletic movements that I do. I get a lot of rotation through my boxing. I got a lot of stability through the jumps, the plyometrics that I do, things like that. Obviously my compound lifts hit my core indirectly. So that's really it. Doesn't need to be fancy. You know what I mean? A couple of exercises and, you know, a low enough body fat percentage and you're going to be popping. They're going to be popping. So we're going to get into this one. And same thing with this one. I'll do about 3-4 sets, 10 to 12 reps. Go all the way out, touch the chest on the ground. And what you want to do when you focus on this is you don't want to be hyperextended in the lower back. You want to be keeping that core nice and stable. If you're getting to a point where you're hyperextending, then your core isn't turned on and you're putting the emphasis on the lower back and you'll start to feel it. So keep the core tight throughout the entire movement. If you can't go to full extension, then just go to where you're able to go to. Once you're feeling that you're hyperextending, you're overstretching yourself and you're just not strong enough to get to that point. But you can build it up. Really feeling that. Got 10 reps, but those last couple, I didn't find that I was getting to full extension. I probably could have gone a little bit further, but at that point, I could feel that if I had gone and stretched out, the emphasis would have been turned to my lower back and my core wasn't strong enough to really just take me to that full extension. And that's absolutely fine. You want to make sure that when you're doing this exercise that all the tension remains on the core. Once you get to the point, like I said, where the lower back starts to feel, then you're overdoing it and you can put yourself for injury. So that's the last thing. You don't want to just be going through the movement. You want to just be, how do I put it? The whole point of this exercise isn't just to get the wheel out and back. The whole point of this exercise is to make sure the tension remains on the core. Because I can roll myself out and then roll myself back and not have any tension on my core, and it looks like the exercise is getting done, but you got to understand that you need to create and hold that tension on there if you want to obviously maximize your results. And that's where it comes down to that mind-muscle connection, so you can really emphasize what you're doing. Because, I mean, you're going to spend time in the gym anyway. Like, a lot of people will go into the gym, they'll do their reps, and you know, they'll walk out. When you compare two people and one person that's really connecting what they want to do and their mind-muscle connection, and someone else just flapping around, you know, both guys doing the same exercises, same hours in the gym. Very, very, very different results. Very different results. If you want shitty muscles, you do shitty reps. That's really how it goes. And if you want to reveal those muscles, then you've got to really hone in on that diet of yours as well, because that's another thing that holds back a lot of people. Everyone can train. Training is, you know, barely an hour of your day. You know, what are you doing those other hours that could potentially lead you to the downfall of, or spiral upwards on making your physique look a certain way? And it really comes down to your dietary choices. You know, discipline over those other hours when you have temptation is paramount to hold into. And you know, we're tempted as men in everyday life in so many different areas. And, you know, how strong of you as a man if you're just going to give in to temptation on the most smallest of things? And I say this to my clients all the time. Like, think about it, you know, ads, their temptations, gambling, women, drugs, alcohol, This, we are tempted left, right, and center. And I think the true testament and strength of a man isn't just how physically strong you are. It's how mentally strong you are as well. Are you giving into temptation like that? Or do you have the strength within to say, no, you know what, I'm not doing that shit. I'm not getting involved. It's not for me, and I'm going to walk my own path. And it might be lonely for some time, but it doesn't matter at the end of the day, man. If you're true to yourself, you'll eventually find your path and the people within that tribe. And then when you guys find and bond yourself together, it becomes an unwreckable force. You know, I mean, I run like a men's community run club every Monday morning down at the beach. And we've got set rules. You know, be there before 6 a.m. Make sure you run up the hills at least 10 times, and then we jump in the water after for 10 minutes and we share our wins for the week and our goals for the week ahead. And that started off with like me and one other mate. And, you know, now years later, we've had upwards of like probably 30 people come at once. But the core group of people there that are in there week in, week out, you know, we're talking like, you know, 12, 13, like wolves. 12, 13 wolves that are there, that have given each other their word that they're going to be there. Rain, hail or shine, middle or winter, doesn't matter. Got guys driving over an hour to get there before 6 a.m. on a Monday morning to set their wake up for success. So the path might be lonely, you know, at least initially. But, you know, I was there by myself at one stage. Then my mate came. But eventually, you know, we become tribal and you find people that are there in your calling. But if I had the mindset at that time when I was going there by myself to think, oh, you know what, it's easy just to give into temptation and I can slot straight into a crowd with a whole bunch of people that are doing all sorts of stuff that don't align with my morals. I could have friends, well, I wouldn't even call them friends, but I could have people that are, I don't even know what the word is, but you know, I could be surrounded and I wouldn't be lonely. But what life would I be living? What would God be thinking? What kind of person would I be? How could I lead my future family? How can I lead my clients to be more successful if I can't even lead myself? So don't shy away from the lonely path. Because if that means that you stray away from the crowd that's doing the wrong thing, then by all means, you'll be making a better choice. And eventually, if you stick out to it long enough, the energy that you put out to the world will attract people that are destined for you as well. I'm a firm believer. I'm not even a believer of that. Actually, I'm a believer of it. I've implemented it in my life in so many facets of it, and this is why I'm explaining this to you guys. Anyway, I've got to do another set. I'm talking too much. So now the fatigue's really kicking in. I'm feeling like I can't really extend as far as I'm used to, but I just go as far as I can, but keeping the tension on the core. And going back to what I was saying with the whole you know, having to be lonely and or more so the energy that you put out to this world and the attraction. So the energy you put out to this world will attract the people that, you know, are vibing off that. And the reason why I'm a firm believer of that is because when I reflect on my years, you know, going through it as a 20-year-old, or even, you know, through my teenage years, but mostly when I was in my 20s, the person that I was being, or the way I was acting as a 20-year-old, and the friendship groups that I had as a 20-year-old, the women that I was dating, you know, when I say 20, I mean in my 20s. The women I was dating in my 20s, I was deserving of everything that came to me. The downfalls, the successes, the women I dated, my friends, people that, you know, stabbed me in the back, even mistakes I made with friendships and things like that. The reason why I say I deserved everything, because I was acting like that. And it's funny because now I'm 33 years old and I'm looking at my life, obviously in hindsight of where I was when I was 25, and I'm finding, at least with a lot of my friendship groups and myself personally, is that a lot of people are actually turning closer to religion and they're finding their calling within religion. And I grew up as a Greek Orthodox. I was baptized Orthodox, grew up in a Greek Orthodox household, you know, grew up across the road from a Greek church, you know, so go there quite often with my grandmother. Not just on service days, like just days would just be cleaning the church and doing all sorts of things. Like, I've got fond memories of like riding my bike around the church, kicking soccer balls, things like that, and cleaning it and things like that. But I guess what I'm saying is I went through a period of my life where, you know, I got a little bit rebellious and veered off track from church, and I wasn't going as often. Started playing soccer on Sundays, and, you know, Sundays turned from church and into soccer. And then there was a period of absence in my life where I wasn't going to church as often, other than like if it was a wedding, a funeral, or Easter. And through that disconnect, I found myself acting in ways that I guess wasn't church-like behavior, so to speak. And that led me to a lot of the things that I was doing throughout my 20s and the morals and standards that I was upholding. But now, 33 years old, obviously had a big turning point, and I learned a lot of lessons along the way. But when I think I was 28 years old, 27 years old, my best mate asked me to be his best man at his wedding. And if you're familiar with the Greek Orthodox faith, if you're asked to be the best man at someone's wedding, then by default, you now become, or you will become, the godfather of their firstborn child. And it was crazy to think that at that time, I said yes. Obviously, I love my mate and, you know, I wanted to do the honor to him, but I really had no idea what the hell I was signing up for from a religious standpoint. I just looked at it like, well, of course I'm not going to say no to you. Like, you're my best mate. I'm going to do you the honor of that. But it wasn't until that point where that injected a sense of urgency for me to really learn and understand what I was signing up for. So I could give my best mate, his wife-to-be at the time, which they're obviously married and they've got kids now, but I guess my word that I am going to be exactly what I've promised and set out to be. And that point in my life, that triggered something massive. And it put me on a journey. And it was funny because that flicked in to the same time when I moved away from playing soccer. and I got into coaching. And as I made that transition from a player to a coach, and from who I was to a best man, that's when I started to really change. And I think that was a big catalyst because it made me rethink everything. Because if I was like, well, if I'm going to be a best man and I'm going to be a coach and I'm going to be a godfather one day, well, who's going to listen to me if I haven't got my backyard cleaned up? How can I lead my godson to greatness? How can I lead my clients to become better human beings, to take care of their diet, to take care of their health to the highest level, if I haven't got the highest level of standards for myself? And I'm not sitting here saying like I was down in the dumps and I was fat or anything like that, but I knew I wasn't my best self. And I knew if I wanted to take that next step into becoming the ultimate man, I needed to do something more. And that's when I ventured into religion a little bit deeper, and I started to understand the religious traditions. I went to Greece in 2023. I visited Mount Athos and I spoke to monks there, priests, and really just involved myself to another level so I could feel true to myself that I was doing the best possible job to be the best possible man. And I find that a lot of people within my friendship group have fallen into that right now because, we're baptizing kids, we're getting married, and all these, big events and sacraments all revolve around the church to some degree. And we're not really involved in the church as much from we're not getting married in our 20s, not so much anyway these days. We're not really getting baptized. So other than like Easter events and things like that, they're not that personal to us. And it's not until something has become personal where you're either getting married yourself, you're going to be the best man at a wedding, or you're baptizing your son. Well, if you're going to make a decision like that, you're thinking to yourself, well, why am I baptizing my son? What is the meaning of that? Why am I getting married under the church? Am I just doing it because that's all I know? Or am I like, you know what I'm trying to say? And now that we've fallen to that age where these things are happening, me, my friendship group, we're all closing in and getting a greater understanding for it. And it's beautiful because, they've got traditional values that teach us so many important things that we've seemed to let go, especially in this Western world. So that's a little bit of my story with that. And it's truly helped me a lot to shaping me into the man that I am right now. And I'm so grateful that I went through that. And I'm so grateful for my mate, Jason, that gave me the opportunity to be the best man at his wedding, because that's changed my life for the better. And in return for that, me changing my life for the better has strengthened me to help me change so many other people's lives for the better with all my clients. So that's why, the better you become sounds real selfish, but, the better I become, the better I can make people around me become. It's a flow-on effect. And that's why I'm so adamant in constantly chasing growth. So I can learn new things and I can inspire those around me to learn things, and hopefully I can set an example for them to be the best versions of themselves. Anyway, I've got to shut up. Third set coming up. Let me hit another 10. I think that's 4. So now we're gonna set up. I'm gonna do some rotational work. And this will just cap off the core that I'm going to be doing today. So I just really want to rotate out to my right side there. And then from here, I want to keep my core nice and stable. You don't want to rotate your hips in. You want to make sure that your hips are square. And then from here, I'm pulling out with my core. And again, the hips are square. I'm not rotating them in like that. So a bit of update of what's going on. Currently training for a marathon, which is going to be done in October. And it was just on the weekend, I actually ran the furthest run I've ever done in my life. I think it was 11.2, 11.4 kilometers, something like that, but it was definitely over 11K. And that is something that I thought was next to impossible barely like 2 months ago. Because what I've been doing is I've been running in strictly Vivo barefoots. And if you're familiar with the Vivo barefoot shoe, let me just fix this. If you're familiar with the Vivo barefoot shoe, let me just get it for you. I mean, I'm wearing them right now, but I've got another set. These shoes are minimalist shoes. So as you can see here, there is no heel, there's no cushioned heel. It's flat. There's a wide toe box. Essentially what these are designed to do is basically run barefooted. Like they're called the Vivo Barefoot. Sounds like I need to explain it, but that's as basic as it gets. But what I'm trying to get at is a lot of people wear a conventional runner where they've got like a raised heel and a cushioned heel. And what that does is it almost forces you to change your biomechanics and the way that you run. And the reason for that is because you've got a cushioned heel, it allows you to think that you can heel strike. So if you were to go back to any, if you were to go out into the street and you were going to run, you would run striking your forefoot on the ground and you'd be connecting the ground like that. And the reason being is because if you were to heel strike and you were wearing no shoes, that's gonna hurt. Now the reason you're able to do it in a conventional shoe is because typically there's a big padded cushion there. So you don't feel the brunt of it. And when you run heel striking, a lot of pressure goes onto your knee and your ankle, your calves, your Achilles tendon, all the intrinsic muscles within your foot doesn't actually get strengthened the way it's designed to. So over time, people run like this, run like this, run like this, wearing the conventional runners. They've actually got weak ankles, calves, and their calves are actually shorter than everything else because when you're raised your heel, you're ever so slightly standing on your tippy toes. Now what that does is that shortens your calf because you're slightly in a calf raise position. So when you go from wearing conventional runners to a Vivo barefoot, immediately you're gonna have a lot of calf and foot pain because you're putting a lot more stress on your calf, your Achilles. You're stretching your calf out more because you're not standing on your toes as much. And then you're running on your forefoot, so therefore you have to use your calves as the shock absorber of the body. And if you're not used to it, it can be quite damaging. And I've been wearing Vivo barefoots for years right now, but I've been doing my whole marathon prep in the Vivos, and I've had a lot of calf issues, I'm not gonna lie, since I was playing football. And then when I took on the Vivo barefoots, I got them even more because I just wasn't careful with my training and wasn't, I guess, respecting the Vivo barefoot shoes. And I wasn't strengthening my Achilles and my calves in the correct way to enable me to do the training that I was doing. And this is why I had a lot of worry going into this training, and my calves going to be able to handle it. You know, started off very small, 2-3 kilometer runs, things like that. I just clocked 11 on Sunday a couple of days ago, and I felt pretty good. And then I went to Monday morning, you know, the beach runs that I was saying with my boys, and we're doing some high intensity running up and down the hills, and I feel great. Today's the next day and my calves don't feel sore whatsoever. So all good signs, but it's taken me ages to get to this point. So it's kind of scary to think that I have to run another 30 kilometers on top of what I did on Sunday in one sitting. And that's going to be like 3 hours plus of running, which is crazy. It's crazy for me to think that. I can't even can't even talk, but I can't even fathom that right now. That just sounds to me like it's absolutely unbelievable. But having said that, 11 Ks 1 month ago sounded nuts. And that's the longest that I've ever ran, ever in my life in one sitting. But I'm here now, so we'll get there eventually. Hit you with another angle so I can work my other side. So you don't want to just kind of have your arms there. A sign that I like to use, right? So if I'm rotated that way, I like to bring my shoulder to like the halfway point of my body. And that to me is, I guess, the signal that I've got that full stretch there. If I go any further, then typically I'll feel like my hips are rolling in, and I don't want to have that. I want to make sure that they remain square. So for me personally, it's the opposing shoulder to come at least halfway to my chin. And that to me is the ultimate stretch. And then from there, and then bring the other shoulder over to the other end. So just alternate the lead shoulder. Right shoulder's leading, left. Keeping that core tight. Hey. So what time is it now? It's 12:30 and I'm still fasted at this point. Haven't eaten since last night. And I probably won't eat for another couple of hours. And that for me works absolute to a T, because I usually get up in the morning. I'll spend the first half of the day either training, responding to all my DMs, clearing my inbox, and tending to all my clients. And then I won't eat till about the afternoon. Then I'll just run off water and some black coffee. And that usually works best for me. But for me mentally, like trying to tap into like being a little bit more ancestral, and you know, if we take it back to, you know, the prehistoric days and fending and fighting for food, you know, you wouldn't wake up and just have food readily available. You would, you know, you'd have to go and hunt it. And I try to instill those type of behavioural patterns within my day-to-day life right now. If I just got up and ate, I'd feel like I hadn't earned it. And that intrinsically makes me feel lazy because I'm rewarding myself without having to do the work. And that's something that is pretty contagious in modern day life right now, where people are rewarding themselves without doing the work. And that comes from like porn, so men right now can get the satisfaction of getting the pleasure of what a woman would give them without actually having to do the work to get the sex. So if you're going to have sex with a woman, work needs to be done in order for you to attain that. You need to take care of yourself. You need to know how to speak to them. You need to look good. You need to smell good. You got to know the right spots. All these factors require you to do a certain level of work to get the woman to actually engage in having sex with her. But now you can get that dopamine rush without having to do any of the work. Just go on your phone, bang porn, and you've gotten the satisfaction without actually having done an ounce of work. And that's sex, number one. Same thing can be done with food. You've gotten the satisfaction of eating, and because eating feels great, especially when you're eating like carbohydrates and things like that, and it's tasty, without actually having done the work to put in to earn that meal. So, if you take it back in the day, you'd have to go out, hunt the food in order to eat it. There was never a point in time where you just wake up and you could just crack 5 eggs, put it on a pan, or have your cereals or whatever the hell you eat in the morning, and bang, you're satisfied. You have to go out and do the work. What else is there, man? Like TV, there's so many different things where we've got this instant satisfaction without having to do the work. And if you do that over a long enough period of time, intrinsically you just make yourself lazy and lazy and lazy. So now I wake up, I fast, and yeah, I'm hungry, don't get me wrong, but I'm choosing not to eat because I want to earn my right to eat. And when I'm hungry or I'm in a state of hunger, I'm a lot more sharper. I've got a little bit of an edge on me because I haven't rewarded myself and I'm working towards that reward. If I get up and eat, I'm not going to have that same edge. And if I don't have that same edge, everything else within my life, my business, the effort I put in with my clients, the effort I put in for myself, the energy that I portray out to the world, it's going to be a little bit lazier because I've already got the reward. It's like inheriting $1 billion or earning that $1 billion. Who do you think's going to have more drive? The person that inherited it or the person that earned it? The guy who inherited it because he put the work in. There's the proof of work to actually attain the goal or the item or the material, whatever the hell it is. You can fill in the blanks with so many different things, but you got to put that work in to attain it. You want the abs. You put the work in to get the abs, you put the diet in, you train, you're going to appreciate them a lot more than if you're just genetically gifted with them. That's for damn sure. So that's the way I try to look at my life overall. Make sure I do the work and then I reward myself later. Delay the gratification and always put in the work first and foremost. And that just keeps me sharper. Even with the athletes that I train, a common practice that they all go through is a lot of them actually don't eat on the morning of their game. And it's not because they want to feel mentally sharper. It's really because nerves set in. And when you're nervous and you're in a heightened state, that you're not actually going to feel comfortable eating. But when you take it back ancestrally, like if before you're going out to a fight, there's no way you're going to sit there and be able to eat something. And the reason for that is when you get that butterfly feeling, that's because your blood is rushing out of your stomach and into your muscles, and it's preparing you for a battle. That's that nervous feeling. So when you're going into a fight, when you're going into a sporting game, things like that, and you're in that heightened state for that morning hours beforehand, your body isn't designed to eat, and it gets you prepared for the battle. So there is ancestral principles behind this, that being in that fasted state is going to help you in every way, shape, and possible to help you with the tasks at hand. So if you can beat that hunger and not give in, you do it over a long enough period of time, eventually you will train your body to adjust in that way, and you will feel, I'm telling you, man, I'm experiencing it, I do it on a day-to-day, you will feel way ahead of the game, way sharper, your workouts will be better, your concentration will be sharper, and your productivity on all fronts of life is going to increase. And I'm not the only one speaking this, man. So many people out there doing it too. Trust me, I can eat, and I'd love to eat, but I know for a damn fact that everything else in my day is going to be not as productive if I eat just a little bit in the morning. And it's a mental switch as well, because I also feel as if I've failed myself. So that's another reason why I don't want to do it. Because when I say I want to do something, you best believe I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure I'm a man of my word, because that is one thing that I think is so important for men, that they aren't true to themselves entirely. A lot of people are bullshitting themselves. They think they work hard. They want to believe that they work hard, or they think it's cool to think they work hard. But bottom line is, they just simply aren't showing up the way that they should be showing up. So every time I say I do something, I want to do something, I put everything in my power to do it. I'm going to do another set, and I've got another story for you that so this whole man of your word, be true to yourself. A couple years ago, I was going to buy a business. And I was in the process of purchasing this business. And I had spoken and told so many people that I was going to do this business and start this business. I bought, I created a logo, registered the company, and this was an already operating business, and I was just going to purchase it off someone, and I was just basically going to create it automated so I can have someone else work in it. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is I had told so many people about this business that I was going to get into that the business deal fell through, and I didn't end up acquiring it. Thank God I didn't, because I probably wouldn't be where I'm at right now. But it didn't go through. And that did my head in. And the reason why it did my head in is because I had said to so many people that I'm going to start this business, I'm going to run it, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And because I'm so adamant on being true to my word, I felt that I was a bullshit artist because this fell through and I wasn't a man of my word. That is how hard that's how serious I am about being honorable and truthful to your word. To the point that I was sick for a whole week. Sick. I remember I couldn't even eat a steak. I was that sick and I felt embarrassed because I thought that people would have thought that Chris Tahma, he's a bullshit artist. He said he was going to do this and he couldn't even get it done. That's how serious I'm about that stuff. Now, obviously that's a sick level to the point where I wasn't feeling good. But the point I'm trying to make is you've got to be true to your word. If you're going to say something, you've got to do it. Because that's a reputation that you end up building about yourself. I say to my clients all the time, I say to my young athletes that I train, if someone was to describe you in 3 words, what are those 3 words? Would you be proud of those 3 words that they're going to say about you? What would they say? Are you lazy, always late, not showing up? Or are they going to say, nah, man, he's got courage, he's honorable, and he works hard? Because if you aren't going to be proud of what people are going to say about you within your own team, then you got work to do. And you have to work to make sure that your reputation is at a level in which you can be proud of. And that starts by you working hard, by doing the work, being honorable to your word. Because more often than not, most guys have got nothing but their word to give. That's it. So you better make sure it's honorable. All right, that wraps up my core session. Probably going to do a bit more weights later on in the afternoon. But just to wrap it up, hanging leg raises with the bars support. I did the ab wheel roll out, and then I did some rotational work. And yeah, I do that like 2-3 times a week. It's not much. Probably took me, I was talking for ages, man. This camera's been rolling for, doesn't even say, but it's probably been close to an hour. But, you can knock this out in like 15-20 minutes. And on top of that, I do a whole range of other athletic type movements that indirectly hit my core, not directly like I was doing it here. And that basically gives me the shape that I have right now, obviously with a well-balanced diet and all that sort of stuff to ensure the abs are popping. But that's all you need. That's all you need. So, probably going to do a few more of these. I actually enjoyed it where my brain was just going off whatever I was feeling throughout the workout. If you want one-to-one coaching, guys, all my links in the description. Fill out the application form. I'll be in touch with you within a couple of days of doing that. Check out my Instagram. I'm posting live stories every day. I go on IG Live, TikTok, all that sort of stuff. So if you want links, check out the description and in the pinned comments. Also, if you're a fan of the Vivo Barefoots, I do have a discount code for you. I believe it's about 15% off. All links in the description. Check it out. I'll see you in the next one.